Hi, my name is Gabriel and I'm a first year fashion marketing student at Leeds Beckett University. In my vlog today, I'm going to be discussing consumer buying behaviour using my own as a focal point when buying a new iPhone, and looking at how the marketing environment influences this behaviour. Consumer buying behaviour is when individuals or groups select, purchase, use or dispose of products, services, ideas and experiences in order to satisfy their needs as consumers. Marketing is the management process of anticipating, identifying and satisfying these customer requirements profitably. Marketing and consumer buying behaviour therefore overlap, as the end goal of both is to have a satisfied consumer. I've been a brand loyal Apple customer since 2012 when I started secondary school, when I got my first iPhone, the iPhone 4. The two main factors within the marketing environment that encouraged this were the influence of my peers mostly all having iPhones, as well as the unique selling points of the iPhone being its then exclusive technology such as FaceTime, iMessage and a front-facing camera. Using the theory of diffusion, I would say that when I first got my iPhone, I was one of the late majority of adopters, as pretty much everyone else already had one. However, recently when I purchased my new iPhone 11, this was within a month of its release, which would arguably make me one of the early adopters of the product. I wouldn't say I was one of the early innovators, as I didn't purchase the phone on pre-order and I didn't want to take the risk of buying a phone that cost so much money, not knowing whether or not it was going to be worth it. Before making any purchase, we as consumers go through what is known as the consumer decision-making process. This is just a series of steps that we go through to make sure that we make the purchase that we deem as being the most appropriate. The first stage is known as the problem recognition. So for instance, I identified that my old iPhone 7 had actually stopped working the way that it was meant to. The battery life had depleted massively and the phone had just started working slower over the last 6 months of us owning it. As well as this, I was also nearing the end of my 2-year phone contract. This meant that I'd identified a problem and knew that I would have to eventually sort this out. The second stage is known as the information search. Within this stage, the consumer has already identified a product problem and they began to actively look for a solution. Therefore, I began researching the market. I looked primarily straight away at Apple to see what they had going on, because I've already dealt with them before and I know they're a reliable company and I've enjoyed their products that I've used in the past. I also used the internet to look at video advertisements for the iPhone as well as other new smartphones, and I looked at YouTube to watch reviews of the phone from people that had already actually bought it and dealt with it to see whether or not it was all Apple claimed it to be. Without these technological influences, I may not have been swayed into buying the iPhone. The third stage is known as the evaluation alternative. Within this stage, the consumer feels like they've all the information they need and begin to evaluate how much they actually want the product. I myself used both rational and irrational measures, some of the more rational ones being things like how much the phone actually cost and whether or not it was worth paying that much money for the phone, and whether or not it was technologically more advanced than cheaper models such as like the 8 and the X. But some of the more irrational measures included things as whether or not my friends had it or wanted it and whether or not it was still quite like a cool phone to have. The penultimate stage is the product choice. In this stage, the consumer has already decided what product they want and they've gone ahead and bought it. My purchase was the iPhone 11 in lilac. This was an expensive and infrequent choice, so therefore it was something that required a lot of emotional investment from me as a consumer, just to make sure that I was confident enough in the purchase I was making and not regret it. The purchase would have been seen by Baines as being limited problem solving, as I do actually already have some knowledge of purchasing this product before in the past, i.e. me old iPhones. However, because I'm a student, my budget has become recently depleted. Therefore, this means that although I have knowledge of the product, it did actually require a lot of thinking and consideration before buying it, just due to the expense. The final stage is the post-purchase evaluation. In this stage, the consumer evaluates how they feel now that they've finally made the purchase and whether or not they would actually recommend it to someone else. In my case, I feel like I've made the right choice purchasing the iPhone 11, and I would really recommend it to anyone else. I think it looks great in all the colours you can get it in, and I just think it's really easy to use the software if you've never used it before, but it still is a little bit more advanced from the older iPhones.